Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: Elton John reveals hidden secret about Diana nobody knew. Before the camaraderie between Sir Elton John, the illustrious and renowned singer-songwriter, and Diana, Princess of Wales, often referred to as the People's Princess, has consistently intrigued the public for decades. At first glance, their companionship appeared improbable, a convergence of two individuals, subjected to distinct forms of scrutiny and hailing from markedly divergent social spheres. One, a quintessential icon of popular music and performance. The other, a woman nurtured within the time-honored traditions and protocols of the British monarchy. Nevertheless, their connection demonstrated authenticity, intimacy, and complexity, intertwining moments of shared humor and warmth with periods of tension and detachment. In interviews and his 2019 book, Me, Elton John, consistently focused on Diana's humanity, providing intimate anecdotes that enhance public comprehension of the individual behind the worldwide celebrity. These memories are not efforts at sensational disclosure, but rather meticulous, devoted remembrance depictions of a relationship that withstood public scrutiny, personal adversities, and eventually, great loss. Their romance started in 1981 at Windsor Castle, at an occasion that was both characteristically royal and surprisingly casual, the 21st birthday celebration for Prince Andrew. At this point, Elton John was well acquainted with royal circles. His music and reputation facilitated access to high society during the 1970s, and he had previously seen members of the royal family on many occasions. Contemporary accounts indicate that Princess Margaret and the Queen Mother were admirers of his art, with tales highlighting the Queen Mother's enjoyment of dancing to his music. John had established himself as a notable figure at royal events, participating in philanthropic performances, and interacting with royals at cultural meetings. His invitation to Windsor was hence not wholly unexpected, although it positioned him in an environment where royal decorum and mingling with celebrities may converge in an atypical manner. John subsequently characterized the mood that evening as peculiarly subdued. A disco was organized in the castle's grand ballroom. However, the music was played at a subdued level, and the atmosphere was subdued, more reminiscent of a genteel social gathering than the vibrant energy of a nighttime crowd. John and Ray Cooper, his percussionist and regular collaborator, were slated to play. Nevertheless, the event was not a typical rock concert, but rather a stylized, somewhat hesitant fusion of genres. The evening had a bizarre but humanizing quality when Princess Anne requested John to dance. The two of them traversed the floor with polite decorum, embodying a blend of formal respect and a subtly ridiculous clash of social registers. At that exact moment, as John endeavored to maintain a composed, this-is-normal demeanor while dancing with royalty, Queen Elizabeth II herself entered the dance floor clutching her handbag, and a DJ, either playful or remarkably ironic, switched the record to Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock. The sight was both entertaining and historically discordant. A rock singer the heir to the throne and other royal family members, even a queen with her purse engaging in an unplanned dance inside an old castle. The scenario implied an unusual camaraderie that may arise when monarchical conventions were briefly eased, allowing the innate human need for uncomplicated social enjoyment to prevail. However, the evening's most significant presence was that of Lady Diana Spencer, recently betrothed to Prince Charles. Elton John subsequently reflected on being instantly impressed by her innate composure and her ability to instill comfort in others. Diana, he noted, exhibited a unique social talent. She could enter a room and via her demeanor put others at ease. While some may be daunted by the trappings of monarchy or the presence of celebrities, she seems to revel in engaging with people, making them feel ordinary in the most positive sense, an empathetic skill grounded in warmth, curiosity, and an innate sense of compassion. That evening, dissatisfied with the mediocre disco music, John and Diana discreetly departed from the assembled guests and started dancing the Charleston together. They danced alone on the floor for an unbroken duration of around 20 minutes, a spontaneous, jovial interlude that evoked a convivial and unforgettable sentiment. The short interaction, seeming to be a trivial social moment, would ultimately serve as the foundation for a lasting relationship that would develop and endure several trials over the years. While cameras intermittently captured their presence together at public events, such as backstage at the 1985 Live Aid concert, where both participated among a myriad of performers and supporters, and subsequently at benefits associated with the Prince's trust, the most significant aspect of their relationship transpired in private. Elton John valued Diana's openness and exuberance. He characterized her as fabulous company, the finest dinner party guest, remarkably indiscreet, a true gossip. Her frankness contributed to her appeal as a friend. She could be inquired of anything and would respond honestly with warmth rather than pretense. This transparency fostered trust and enabled them to communicate beyond their public personas and the roles they were anticipated to fulfill. In one other's presence, they could engage in candid discussions about anxieties, embarrassments, interventions, and causes free from the distorting and performing pressures of celebrity. An illustrative incident from a meal at Elton's home highlights Diana's social allure and the kind of situations it sometimes generated. In attendance that evening were Hollywood stars, Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone, among others, while Diana, then estranged from Prince Charles, was there and luminous. John observed as Diana and Gere, engrossed in intense discourse around the fireplace, seemed to disappear into a shared captivation. The two were engrossed, apparently transcended by their dialogue. However, their relationship exacerbated the atmosphere when Stallone, maybe anticipating an other dynamic, exhibited noticeable irritation. John then noted Stallone directing hostile glares, resulting in an escalation of tension inside the room. At one moment, John and his companion David Furnish saw Gere and Stallone in a corridor on the brink of a violent altercation about Diana's attention. Furnish effectively diffused tensions. Nonetheless, the dinner concluded suddenly with Stallone leaving in a huff, reportedly grumbling that he would not have gone had he been aware that Prince fucking Charming would be there. Diana exhibited a demeanor of serenity throughout the evening, perhaps oblivious or at least unfazed by the discord her presence had inadvertently incited. For John, the experience highlighted Diana's remarkable personal charisma, a compelling attribute that beyond mere physical allure and could disconcert even veteran personalities in the entertainment industry. It was a magnetism capable of both unlocking opportunities and inciting difficulties. Aside from the camaraderie of dinner parties and sometimes jealousy among attendees, the basis of their relationship lay in a shared commitment to humanitarian issues, particularly the nascent and highly stigmatized catastrophe of HIV/AIDS. The 1980s were characterized by pervasive fear and ignorance about the illness. The public and some professionals erroneously thought that HIV could be transferred via casual contact, leading to the common ostracism and dehumanization of those living with AIDS. In this context, Diana executed one of her most significant and conspicuous public acts. In April 1987, she inaugurated the United Kingdom's first purpose-built HIV/AIDS facility at the Middlesex Hospital in London. Before television cameras and the world press, she shook hands with a guy suffering with AIDS without wearing gloves. The gesture was simple in execution, but profound in its symbolism. It directly opposed the prevalent concern that the illness might be transmitted via casual contact and presented a counter-narrative that humanized those previously seen as objects of terror. Elton John comprehended the significant importance of the occasion. He saw Diana's behavior as an expression of sympathy rather than a political maneuver, a spontaneous benevolence that contributed to altering public view. For an individual increasingly engaged in campaigning and fundraising for those impacted by HIV/AIDS, the symbolism had significance. Diana's actions aligned with John's efforts to highlight and get funding for a public health concern that had been for several years lamentably neglected and misinterpreted. In 1992, he established the Elton John AIDS Foundation, an organization that used benefit concerts, prominent galas, philanthropic collaborations, and strategic grants to finance prevention testing, treatment, and care initiatives. The foundation emerged as a significant conduit for directing charity contributions towards biological therapies and community-based services, strengthening groups that directly assisted those affected by HIV and confronting the stigmas that hindered access to care and compassion. Over time, the foundation allocated and disbursed hundreds of millions of dollars to organizations and programs globally, endorsing a diverse range of initiatives, from needle exchange and educational programs to financing antiretroviral treatment projects and community-driven efforts in areas most affected by the epidemic. Elton and Diana's gestures, her handshake, and his formal reply constituted a larger ethical initiative aimed at reshaping public perceptions and galvanizing resources in response to a humanitarian situation that had been treated with apathy and trepidation. Their relationship, albeit intimate, was not without difficulties. In 1997, a rupture was tried that induced a prolonged period of stillness between them. The proximate reason was a project titled Rock and Royalty, a coffee table book envisioned by Elton John and his associate, the fashion designer Gianni Versace, aimed at raising funds for the Elton John AIDS Foundation. The project contrasted intimate shots of the royal family, including photographs of Diana with her boys, with creative depictions of semi-nude male models. John articulated the purpose as both creative and philanthropic, a bold graphic concept aimed at generating funds for severely underfunded AIDS initiatives. Diana initially consented to write a preface for the book, but abruptly retracted her agreement at the last time. John was informed that her decision sprang from apprehensions over the potential displeasure of the Queen. He found this rationale challenging to believe and felt personally affronted by her backtracking. He recalled Versace presenting Diana with the whole book, which she had esteemed. The suddenness of her change of heart, coupled with the financial ramifications for his organization, seemed akin to a betrayal, or at the very least, a discourtesy. Preliminary repair efforts were unsuccessful. John addressed Diana in writing, expressing his displeasure, and subtly reminded her of the philanthropic implications and the previous consent she had seemingly provided. Her response, starting with the formal "Dear Mr. John," and enveloped in rigid etiquette, seemed to him as distant and unwelcoming. The tone of the email intensified his perception that Diana was progressively isolating herself from candid advice and associating herself with others who affirmed her desires rather than providing necessary truths. Hubris on both sides obstructed a prompt reconciliation. In John's final assessment, both he and Diana were excessively proud to reconcile a divide that might have been easily resolved with a simple phone call. The break was especially concerning since it occurred at a time when the personal stakes, his foundation's fundraising and Diana's public role, converged. An external disaster was necessary to resolve the stalemate. On July 15, 1997, their mutual acquaintance, Gianni Versace, was assassinated outside his residence in Miami Beach, an incident that astonished both their social circle and the general populace. Versace's brutal demise, along with the ensuing feeling of vulnerability among acquaintances, breached the barriers that individuals often construct in public spheres. In the immediate aftermath, Diana contacted Elton to convey her concern. She was on vacation at the time, and throughout the conversation, her tone became regretful. She characterized their disagreement as a trivial falling out and inquired whether he had spoken with Versace's sister, Donatella. Her call was conciliatory, and the apology was unequivocal. For Elton, it was a heartfelt expression of remorse and a serious desire to mend their relationship. The subsequent reunion was swift. Several weeks later, they sat together at Versace's burial in Milan, a public event that indicated their rekindled intimacy and collective sorrow. A widely disseminated snapshot depicts Diana reaching toward a very distraught Elton, a subtle but significant gesture of solace amidst grief. Their contact recommenced, and in the weeks before her death, Diana offered to serve as a patron of his AIDS organization, and requested his support for a landmine charity with which she was affiliated. They intended to convene in London for lunch to align their philanthropic objectives and enhance their cooperation and mutual support. Those plans, similar to several other aspirations and endeavors, that winter were mercilessly truncated. At the early hours of August 31, 1997, Elton John was roused by a sudden rhythmic disturbance. The fax machine at his residence started its clattering. A handwritten note from a friend in London communicated the unimaginable Princess Diana had been involved in a tragic automobile accident in Paris. The claims were validated upon the activation of the television. The global response was immediate and resolute, a surge of sorrow that swiftly transformed into a significant cultural phenomenon. Floral tributes gathered outside Kensington Palace and other royal houses. News networks transformed into incessant platforms for astonished discourse. Diplomats, celebrities, acquaintances, and common citizens worldwide grappled with the loss and tried to comprehend the events that transpired. The magnitude of public grieving was extensive. Millions saw the funeral broadcast, and an estimated worldwide audience counted in the billions observed the televised event. The death and subsequent grieving prompted more inquiries on stardom, media intrusion, and the human toll of existing under incessant public scrutiny. As preparations for a public burial advanced, Elton John was solicited to play. He promptly saw that the original words of "Candle in the Wind," his 1974 tribute to Marilyn Monroe, were unsuitable in their first form for this event. He reached out to Bernie Taupin, his longtime lyricist collaborator, who swiftly revised the lyrics to transform the song into a dedicated tribute to Diana, referring to her as England's Rose, and altering the song's narrative from a lament for a 1950s Hollywood star to a hymn for a princess whose existence epitomized intricate issues surrounding fame and vulnerability. The revision was executed swiftly and with urgency. The new language aimed to preserve the elegiac melodic essence of the original, while distinctly focusing on Diana, her warmth, her solitude, and the public scrutiny that both exalted and exposed her. The concert was almost cancelled. Subsequently, upon the release of papers, it became apparent that Buckingham Palace and some senior members of the royal household had concerns over the appropriateness of a pop song, even if performed by a longtime acquaintance for a burial ceremony in Westminster Abbey. Concerns arose that the lyrics may be too romantic for a grave religious event. Westminster Abbey, anticipating all eventualities, had even arranged for a solo saxophone to be on standby should the song be prohibited. The resolute lobbying of the Dean of Westminster, the Very Reverend Dr. Wesley Carr, was necessary to get approval. Dr. Carr sent a compelling letter to a senior member of the royal household, asserting that the music was vital to the mourner's experience, and that Westminster Abbey should be open to including something of the modern world with which the princess had a particular affinity. He contended that Elton John's music, known to millions, and cherished by Diana, served as the most poignant medium for a vast and mourning populace to articulate their grief. His appeal succeeded. On September 6, 1997, Elton John played a revised version of Candle in the Wind at a piano in Westminster Abbey, seen by a worldwide audience. According to his subsequent recollection, it was one of the most arduous performances of his life. He recognized that for around 4 minutes of the song, the world's attention was directed on him. He maintained that the occasion should not center on himself. He characterized the performance as an homage to Diana and a demonstration of solidarity with the millions in grief. For him, the most poignant image that day was not the crowds, but the 2 young lads sat together in sorrow, Prince William and Prince Harry, aged 15 and 12, respectively. He remembered them seeming astonished and unsettlingly vulnerable 2 youngsters compelled to mourn in front of a camera and a global audience. The fragility of those teens troubled him. He later expressed profound disquiet at the sight of 2 young boys compelled under the intense scrutiny of the media to navigate and exhibit their sorrow as the world saw. That empathy for the princes would persist and evolve into a central motif of his public declarations and private conduct in the subsequent years. The 1997 rendition of Candle in the Wind achieved remarkable sales, becoming one of the best-selling singles in recorded history, with reports indicating it sold tens of millions of copies globally. The sales statistics and widespread airing made it a significant cultural relic of the grieving era. The song's revenues were allocated to charity purposes related to Diana's legacy, and the organizations she supported a philanthropic reflection of their relationship. The performance and the record were concurrently lauded for encapsulating a time of collective mourning, but being criticized by others who saw the use of popular music into a serious ceremony as a deviation from tradition. For several ordinary mourners, Elton John's song offered a vocabulary for grief that the liturgy at that time could not provide. In the years subsequent to Diana's death, Elton John emerged as a custodian of her legacy and a devoted advocate for her boys. He consistently advocated for William and Harry in response to invasive media scrutiny and the publicization of their personal decisions that sparked issues. Leveraging his relationship with their mother, he portrayed himself as having both a personal interest and a moral duty to protect them from the journalistic intrusion he thought had played a role in her demise. He sometimes positioned himself in the gap between the princes and an unyielding media landscape, providing counsel camaraderie and public interventions. In 2007, he appeared with Prince William and Prince Harry on stage at Wembley Stadium for the Concert for Diana, a significant memorial event intended to honor what would have been their mother's 46th birthday, and to generate donations for the organizations she had endorsed. Subsequently, he participated in public family gatherings and persisted in contributing his musical and ethical voice to memorials and fundraising initiatives that honored Diana's memory. His public engagements with the family indicated a continuing friendship as he attended significant family events, including the royal wedding festivities. He attended the wedding celebrations of Prince William in 2011 and played at the luncheon event subsequent to Prince Harry's nuptials in 2018. These appearances strengthened a lasting connection between him and the royal family, emphasizing his ongoing dedication to commemorating Diana's legacy. In addition to public tributes, the charitable efforts of the Elton John AIDS Foundation sustained the moral legacy of Diana's contributions. During milestone anniversaries and significant fundraising events, the foundation recognized her impact on public perceptions of HIV/AIDS and honored the contribution of her public actions in humanizing those affected by the illness. Comprehending the profound relationship between Elton John and Princess Diana necessitates an examination of Elton John's personal history, his first challenges and creative development, as well as the influence of his celebrity on his awareness of the repercussions of public scrutiny. Reginald Kenneth Dwight was born on March 25, 1947 in Pinner, Middlesex, and subsequently took the stage name Elton Hercules John. His formative years transpired in a humble council home among a family that established traditional standards of labor and behavior. His father, Stanley Dwight, a former RAF flying lieutenant, allegedly dissuaded him from pursuing a career in music, preferring a safer, more traditional trajectory for his son. The early limitations and the experience of maturing in a constrained setting created a need for personal expression, as well as the flamboyance and theatricality that would eventually define Elton John's stage persona. For some onlookers, that stage character was both a declaration of uniqueness and a creative repudiation of the emotional constraints imposed by a traditional upbringing. Musical aptitude emerged early. He began piano lessons as a child and quickly had an exceptional ability to identify and replicate intricate tunes. At the age of 11, he secured a junior scholarship at the Royal Academy of Music in London, attending weekend sessions for 5 years, an education that established a classical basis, while his preferences shifted towards the burgeoning genre of rock and roll. At 17, he departed from school before completing his A-levels to pursue music full-time, a pivotal decision that resulted in a life where performance and creative risk were everyday imperatives. His first professional endeavors were the establishment of a band, Bluesology, and subsequently a pivotal encounter with Bernie Taupin in 1967 after responding to an advertising in the New Musical Express. Taupin and John established a songwriting relationship that remains one of the most prolific partnerships in contemporary pop music. For years they composed for others. In 1969, John published his first album, Empty Sky, and in 1970, the song Your Song emerged as a breakout success. The song's combination of melodic simplicity and emotional clarity propelled John to an international platform and unveiled a songwriting voice that harmonized theatricality with intimacy. The 1970s solidified his commercial and critical acclaim. A series of albums, Honky Chateau, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Captain Fantastic, and The Brown Dirt Cowboy, among others, solidified his status and produced many chart-topping songs. Throughout an illustrious career, he attained over 50 top 40 singles in both the United Kingdom and the United States, selling in excess of 100 million albums. While sales statistics varied among various sources, his international prominence positioned him among the most successful performers in the annals of popular music history. The tribute song he made in 1997 in honor of Diana, which sold tens of millions of copies, is among the best-selling singles in history and revitalized public interest in the intersection of music and grieving in contemporary society. Elton John's creative influence beyond the mainstream charts, including musical theater and movies. He created renowned scores for both stage and screen. His work on The Lion King earned him Academy Award recognition. The Broadway musical Aida and Billy Elliot the Musical demonstrated his ability to adapt pop idioms into theatrical narratives. His songs and theatrical sensibility resonated with diverse audiences across generations. His life and career were later depicted in the film Rocketman 2019, which explored the dynamics of creative brilliance, personal adversity, and public mythos. His accomplishments have received much recognition. He has been awarded many Grammy Awards, Academy Awards, and a Tony Award. He was conferred knighthood by the British monarchy, becoming Sir Elton John in recognition of his contributions to music and philanthropy. He is one of a select group of artists who have garnered significant accolades across all disciplines and have been publicly acknowledged for both creative achievement and charitable leadership. In addition to his creative achievements, Elton John's charity endeavors have been a prominent aspect of his public persona. The Elton John AIDS Foundation, established in 1992, evolved into a prominent worldwide charity, orchestrating high-profile fundraising galas, using celebrity endorsements to attract attention, and distributing funds to community groups that provide direct services and advocacy. The Foundation's projects focused on prevention and education, needle exchange programs, testing and treatment services, and assistance for at-risk populations efforts that both mirrored and enhanced the humanitarian impulses that first attracted him to Diana. He endeavored to convert pain and compassion into tangible, enduring answers to human suffering via music activism and institutional charity. Their friendship may be seen as a rare alchemy when two individuals subjected to severe public scrutiny discovered a blend of trust, humor, and mutual understanding. Both were compelled to navigate the complexities of performance and sincerity. Both encountered the distorting influence of notoriety on personal life. In each other's presence, they found a measure of refuge from those powers. Elton John's reflections, whether conveyed in writing or dialogue, transcend mere celebrity anecdotes. They humanize a princess whose mediated portrayal has frequently been reduced by biography, rumor, and myth, and they reveal the essence of a musician whose public flamboyance concealed a profound capacity for empathy and loyalty. Their narrative encompassing joy, conflict, reconciliation, and sorrow serves as a powerful testament to the capacity of friendship to offer refuge and significance in overtly lived lives, and to how minor acts of kindness, handshakes in medical facilities, collaborative lunches, and brief reconciliatory phone calls can occasionally wield transformative social influence. The connection between Elton John and Diana persists in memory as a private relationship with significant public ramifications affecting philanthropic endeavors influencing public opinion, and establishing a legacy where the personal and political are closely interconnected. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for now.